The White House doubles down on redefining what a recession is. Disney Plus continues to go woke with their new National Treasure series, and Brendan Fraser's making a comeback. All that and more here on The Bald Brad Show. Welcome to The Bald Brad Show. It is Thursday, July 28th, and as always, I couldn't be more than happy than to share these mornings with all of you, my friends and true American patriots, where we can come together as a community, go over the stories of the day, and bring you all the news and information you need to know about. So if you want to join us here at The Bald Brad Show, and we hope that you do, hit that like and subscribe button. If you're over at Rumble, give us a plus and a comment down below. And if you're listening on any of the podcast airwaves, Apple, Google, Spotify, etc., leave us a lovely 5-star review. Not only would you be supporting conservative, but most importantly, you'd be helping getting conservative thought and ideas out there to new viewers who haven't seen our content or our channel. So your help and support would be greatly appreciated. With that being said, a lot of news to cover, a lot of video clips, especially with Peter Doocy just completely taking it to the White House this week. I mean, this guy is doing a number on them and a real shellacking on Karine Jean-Pierre. He highlights the hypocrisy, he highlights the double standard, and he kind of forces them and corners them into redefining what a recession is, because he's constantly pushing this whole, well, we're in an inflation. Isn't that Biden's fault? Didn't Biden contribute to inflation? Isn't it Biden's fault that gas prices are rising? And Karine Jean-Pierre is forced to manipulate and kind of change things and go against what reality is showing us and gaslighting us on certain avenues of the economy, of inflation, of what a recession is. And that brings us to our lead story of the day regarding the White House redefining literally what a recession is. So if you see 2 consecutive quarters on a general rule of thumb with a negative GDP growth and everything's rescinding, then you are by definition into a recession. But the White House doesn't want to do that. You have Janet Yellen coming out, the Treasury Secretary, saying, oh, we're just in a transition of slow growth. Okay, so you want to kind of elaborate on that rather than it being so general? What does that mean? Well, we have the capabilities, lady, to look at the numbers and actually see what's going on. So you're not going to gaslight us. You're not going to sit there and redefine things and get away with it. And that's what they're trying to do. Even their own people, MSNBC, CNN, aren't really following this whole charade that they're trying to do, this clown show, theater show that they're putting on for all of us. So it's ridiculous, and it makes sense why they want to do it, at least on a political standpoint and a PR standpoint. I mean, they have a litany of negatives. They have a list of problems that they have to deal with that they just can't solve, or they're not willing to solve, i.e. immigration, inflation. You have rising gas prices, you have the oil issue, you have the Iran issue, you have the Russia issue, you have the China issue. I mean, it's thing after thing. So they don't want to just keep tacking on things. Now that we're going into recession, it's just something new. So what are they going to do? They're just going to redefine it for us, folks. And they're going to double down, which is what we're about to see here with this clip, with Peter Doocy acknowledging it here in this interview. You're going to see them talk about something before, but I promise we'll get to the moment in the segment where she redefines it, and she's going to say, oh, well, you know, that's not what we're doing. It's not the technical term, yada, yada, yada. Let's go ahead and roll this clip.
Great, but so as you talk about plans on the other side, it was this president's plans that contributed to inflation, right?
No, it was not. It was this president's plan. If we talk about the American Rescue Plan, look, Peter, when the president walked into this administration, there was an economic crisis, there was a COVID crisis, there was a climate change crisis, and we're still dealing with a lot of that right now. But the president turned the economy back on. There were businesses that were closed, schools that were closed, and because of the American Rescue Plan, by the way, no Republican voted for that plan, and that plan had $350 billion.
No Republicans voted for it, so who do we get to blame? Who are we going to blame for all this inflation? Joe Biden and the Democrats. You can't blame Republicans. They didn't vote for it. So in terms of their rescue plan they're talking about, this inflation, at least one of the causes, is all due to the Democrat Party. She said it herself without actually saying it.
For public safety, another thing that Republicans talk about, but they actually don't do, and they don't push forward on a policy that will help our law enforcement.
What a lie.
That plan helped put us in a stronger labor market and help make our economy stronger. And so that is what is happening. It is not the president that has created inflation. There are also outside factors that has led us to where we are today.
If things are going so great, though, then why is it the White House officials are trying to redefine recession.
No, we're not redefining recession.
No, Peter, we love you. No, we're not defining recession. Look at her face. Look, is that something you're going to believe? Oh my God. I mean, the gaslighting. I've said it numerous times. The White House deals over here and everybody else is dealing with reality and watching everything else unfold that contradicts what the White House is saying and doing. It's really, I mean, the definition of a clown show is this administration.
We all understand a recession to be 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth in a row, and then you have White House officials come up here to say, no, that's not what a recession is. It's something else. How is that not redefining recession?
Because that's not the definition. That is not the definition.
Brian Deese said in 2008, of course, economists have a technical definition, which is of a recession, which is 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth.
I can tell you this.
Yesterday he said 2 negative quarters of GDP growth is not the technical definition of a recession.
It is
What
not.
changed?
It is not.
Why did he say that
It
was?
is not. I can
What's the
I can
difference other
speak
than who the
to
president is?
I can speak to what he said yesterday in front of all of you, which is the last thing that you just repeated. There are many factors. There are many factors, economic factors and indicators to consider, and I will say that the textbook definition of recession is not 2 negative quarters of GDP. We have a strong labor market. We have business that's investing. We have consumers that are also very much investing and purchasing. That is incredibly important. We have 3.6 unemployment. You do not see that in a pre-recession, and you do not see that in a recession. So the factors that we are seeing right now, the economic indicators,
Unbelievable, folks.
does not show that we're in a recession. And I'll read, since you gave me some quotes, I'll give you some as well. In 2009, the St. Louis Fed said, while the popular definition of recession is 2 consecutive quarters of negative real gross domestic product GDP growth, the NBER, which we have mentioned many times in this room, does not strictly abide by this designation. Instead, the committee broadly defines a recession as a significant decline in economic activity spreading across the economy, lasting more than a few months. NBER has been around since 1920. I'm going to move on.
She's going to move on because she knows that that quote is a terrible quote to utilize, because the NBER, when Trump would utilize it, you had the Democrats go after him that it wasn't a good use of information or a viable source. So again, they're known to be switching things. I believe it was the Webster Dictionary or the Oxford Dictionary redefined what a woman was into whatever you basically identify as. So you see this type of manipulation from the left all the time, where they're just consistently redefining everything to fit and push a narrative. And that is a dangerous thing to be doing, especially in a civilization, a society. And that's why I firmly believe the left, not necessarily the Democrats, but the progressive left, in the redefining of language, manipulating and changing things to push a specific narrative, is going to be one of the main reasons this country collapses from the inside out. Okay, you're gonna hear me talk more about that come this fall, because I have a really important announcement to make this fall in terms of that whole idea. But bear with me on that. We will get there at some point in the future in terms of the destruction that's happening inside this country present day. Well, it wasn't just Peter Doocy taking a shellacking on Karine Jean-Pierre. This man has been on a roll, and he went after the NEC director, Brian Deese, regarding the economy. I mean, like I said, this man is a showman. He's a true American patriot. He needs to be on the Bald Brad show. I don't know if anybody here has any connections, but can we get the man on the show and just give him the acknowledgement and everything that he deserves and praise here? So another clip of him just completely making another White House official fumble and stutter through their words. Literally. Let's go ahead and roll this one.
Brian, the president's economic advisors were telling us last year that inflation was going to be temporary. That's not true. Now the president's economic advisors are saying there's not going to be a recession. Are you sure?
Well, let me just say this. We look at a range of data, we assess that data, and we lay it out for ourselves and for the president. But you don't have to take our word on this.
But the president does.
On the question, no. But we also look at what outside analysts are doing. We look at every type of analysis that you could imagine. But let me just highlight. So, Citigroup, little.
He's taking his time with this one because he doesn't know how to answer it. Because look, the numbers are out. The numbers are showing that we're clearly in a negative GDP. And that is the rule of thumb, the popular definition of what a recession is. And so now he's trying to say, well, we use other sources. We use outside analysts as well. We use outside data. And in a nutshell, he didn't outright say this, but if you play it back and actually listen to what he said, in a nutshell, he's implying, well, we just kind of pick and choose the data that we want to present you. The data that's going to ultimately fit our narrative, which again, it's a common theme with this administration, to pick and choose and redefine things and ultimately push a narrative that is false onto the American people.
All the data that I see tells me that the U.S. is on the cusp of a recession. Morgan Stanley, with strong job growth and continued robust final domestic demand and consumption, this economy really does not look particularly recessionary. JP Morgan, it is inconceivable for a labor market that has generated close to 500,000 jobs average monthly gains for the past 6 months to be in a recession. So
this data that they're pulling, and I think this is important, is interesting because we're in basically a sphere where certain elements have never existed before, meaning coming out of a pandemic, of course, you're going to see new jobs created. You're going to see an increase in growth in terms of the labor market, in terms of people getting new jobs, developing new jobs, creating new jobs. So yes, that data ultimately wouldn't necessarily be consistent in the past, but because you have this now happening with negative GDP growth, yes, at the same time having an increase of a labor force going back to work, creating new jobs because everything was just shut down, both could be true at the same time. You could have negative GDP growth, utilizing the popular rule of thumb, while at the same time having an increase in the labor market, even though people are still struggling trying to find employment, or in other words, find workers for their job. Let's continue.
So we analyze the data, we look at the data, we understand the significant uncertainties that exist in the global economy, including issues of war, including issues of supply chains. But we also look at what other analysts and outside observers are, and certainly that's something that I know you and your outlets do as well.
So honestly, he didn't really answer the question. Peter Doocy's question was, are you sure? It didn't seem like he was sure. I'll tell you that much. Fumbling, stuttering, didn't seem very confident. Was reading just quotes from CEOs. Since when were like CEOs the all-knowing people, the all-knowing powers of if we're in a recession or not? Well, JP Morgan or, this person said it. Are they an economist? I mean, they're CEOs. I'm not saying they're dumb. But it's like, just because people are spending more money does not necessarily mean we are or are not in a recession. And I like to point out, yes, you have people spending more money, but it's also the reason why things are more expensive. So yes, they're spending more money, but that's because our prices of goods and services are more expensive as well. But they're not going to tell you that with the numbers. They're going to sit there and do all the shady manipulation. If you notice that, it's all shady. It's all weird. But it's a constant theme from the Democrat Party. Look, I'm not saying the Democrats don't do it. Democrats do a lot of things that I mentioned on this show. Republicans do a lot of things that I mentioned on the show, but I think Democrats do it exorbitantly way more, like not even close. So with all this push that they're doing on redefining, you have the Federal Reserve coming out just yesterday, increasing interest rates again to combat the Biden inflation. So the Federal Reserve announced on Wednesday that it raised interest rates by 75 basis points for the second straight month in an effort to help slow inflation. I personally don't think it's enough. Again, if you look back throughout history, you doing 0.75% here, 0.25% here, you need to ultimately do a little bit more than that, give it way more of a bump to show everybody, hey, I'm a little bit serious on this, on trying to curb inflation. Quote, the committee seeks to achieve maximum employment and inflation at the rate of 2% over the long run, the Fed said in a press release. In support of these goals, the committee decided to raise the target range for the federal funds rate to 2.5 and a little bit lower than that as well, percent, and anticipates that ongoing increases in the target range will be appropriate. I think it's 2.25 to 2.5 is really what the range that they're looking for. The Federal Reserve also noted that recent indicators of spending and production have softened, but added job gains have been robust in recent months and the unemployment rate has remained low. So they keep pushing this idea of job gains and unemployment remains low. But like I said, we just came out of just shutting everything down. So when everything opens back up, what do you expect to happen? Like, honest to God, like, what do they expect to happen? Like, people not to go back to work? I mean, it did happen for a little bit because you're cranking out checks and basically out competing the private sector and the corporate world. But once those unemployment checks stopped coming, all of a sudden people went back to work. Go figure, right? So I don't understand why they keep pushing this. Well, look at the job numbers. Look at the unemployment. Yes, you opened everything back up, but that does not mean that you still can't have negative GDP growth and still be in a recession. Well, not everything's receding, so obviously we're not in a recession. God. And people buy into this crap. That's the thing. Look, if this was Trump or anybody else, like when we get a Republican back in office, trust me, the Bald Brad Show will still be here. I don't care who the hell you are. You're a politician. If you're somebody running and living in the government and you're telling me what I can and can't do, you're going to get a shellacking regardless. I love Trump, but there's going to be some things I will say about him that maybe not everybody will jive with. Maybe not everybody will agree with. That's on the Trump side of the aisle. I will vote for him. I'm a registered Republican. At heart, I'm a conservative. I love Trump. I love DeSantis. But look, they're politicians, folks. Okay? We're the people. We're the American people. They're supposed to serve us and run the country efficiently. When you got politicians like the nut jobs in the government right now, they're going to take a shellacking from all us Americans, at least on the right-hand side of the aisle, because Democrats are just covering for them. It also claimed that Russia's war in Ukraine is partly to blame for the ongoing economic woes. That is true. I love how they only say partly to blame, but I'm curious if the Fed's going to blame the Biden administration. For those that are listening, I just shook my head. That ain't going to happen. Inflation remains elevated, reflecting supply and demand imbalances related to the pandemic, higher food and energy prices, and broader price pressures. Russia's war against Ukraine is causing tremendous human and economic hardship. The war and related events are creating additional upward pressure on inflation and are weighing on global economic activity. The committee is highly attentive to inflation risks. While the Fed may say that the Russian war is to blame, the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell has previously testified that inflation was high before, certainly before the war in Ukraine broke out. That sounds like a little bit of a contradiction to what Karine Jean-Pierre just said, where basically Biden's, Biden's whole plan and his policies had no effect on inflation. It wasn't his fault, all that cash he was throwing in the economy. No, that didn't cause inflation. Never happened. What are you talking about? No, see, he helped everything. He boosted the economy. You see this whole spiel with what Obama did, cashing out, bailing out the banks and others. You have the same thing here with Biden throwing out these freaking COVID checks like they're hotcakes, even though not everybody needed them. It was super inefficient, basically dumb, because there's a lot of people that still had their job. There's a lot of people that were still making a good amount of income that didn't need those checks or were able to pay their bills. So we didn't need to spend nearly the amount that we needed to, or you could just open up the economy as well and kind of save us all from this. But no, he didn't want to do that. He would rather just pump out checks and put in all this crazy crap from the Democrat Party that was called pork into these bills and all this stuff so everybody can get their way. Just completely nuts. So a lot of it was the climate crisis stuff that they're pushing. The move comes as the Consumer Price Index report in July that inflation increased 9.1% between June of 2021 and June of 2022. In June, the Fed also hiked interest rates by 0.75%. In other words, 0.75%. That was the boldest action since 1994 after inflation rose 8.6% in May. So they're going to continue this whole charade that none of this is really happening. They'll say that inflation's happening, but they're going to blame it on Putin. They'll not admit that recession is happening, and they're just going to say that we're in a slow transition of growth. It's just mind-blowing. And I want to give you guys a little bit of bonus footage here. So I don't even know how to word this. Supposedly, Joe Biden works out. I believe it. Look, maybe he does resistance bands or something. But you're going to see a clip here of Karine Jean-Pierre the other day talking about his workout plan. Just watch how giddy she gets that the president works out. You saw this kind of same emotion from, I don't even know the guy's name, the doctor guy they've been chauffeuring out, the guy that's the middleman for the president and the rest of the public. And he was like, well, Joe Biden finished his food, as if that's a big deal. I mean, that's where we're at with this president, that they get all excited when the guy finishes his food. He finishes a plate of food and they get all exorbitant and excited about it. So because the president's going to maybe walk around the White House rather than falling asleep, which he did in an interview literally the other day, he was on an active call. Dude fell asleep and the aides in the room, while he's not wearing a mask, had to tell him to wake up. So let's go ahead and roll this clip of her getting all giddy because Biden supposedly asked his doctor if he could work out again.
What sort of exercise is he doing? Is it treadmill?
I knew that was going to come. I knew, and I should have asked. I mean,
Hilarious.
look, you know, I think I think it says a lot. And I spoke to Dr. O'Connor earlier today that the president is feeling, you know, well, and we should be thrilled and wanting him to have that negative test. I'm sure you guys are waiting for that as well, so you can see him in person, that he's doing well enough to say that he wants to work out. I think it's been reported in the past that he likes to do weights and he likes to be, you know, do the treadmills. I don't think I'm sharing anything confidential here, but yeah, I think it brought a smile to my face when I saw that he wants to work out. You know?
And secondly,
Okay. He does weights. He's on the treadmill. Just, have we seen the video clips of this guy walking to Marine One through the grass? You're going to like, maybe, I'm sure he does do some sort of exercises, okay? I'm not denying that. It's just the idea that he can look and walk the way that he does while still exercising. If he was so prone to exercising, then why is the White House scared of him tripping over cords and literally breaking his hip and doing all these things? So supposedly he exercises. I'm glad that he's feeling better. We need the leader of the free world to at least be somewhat cognizant, because hell, if he had COVID-19, I don't put in air quotes COVID-19, because there is a theory out there, and I think I was watching Sav Says the other day, and there was a theory out there because that he said that he had cancer, that, you know, they're like, well, what are we going to do? The next best thing is like, oh, let's just say that he has COVID. So that kills basically that story. And the main story is that he has COVID-19. You know, I don't have any evidence to believe that is true. And honestly, I don't really have any evidence to believe that it's not true, that he does have COVID or either. They haven't really shown us anything. They're not chauffeuring a doctor out there. They've just had a middleman. And all the press is getting is like these reports from the doctor. They're not actually able to talk to the guy for some odd reason. But, you know, it's just one of those things, the charades that this White House, this administration's doing in hiding everything. And I love how she goes, oh, well, you know, hopefully he gets tested negative so you can see him. How about we see him on that podium? That's what we want to see. We want to see him get shellacked by all these reporters because he's not cognizant. He's not there. He falls asleep. He's probably taking crazy amount of nap time every single day, getting paid tons of money. She's getting paid $180,000 to run this country right into the ground. If anything, I want to see his, you know what, on that podium and start answering some damn questions that the American public has, because he's going out there getting all these vetted questions, and it's so frustrating because the Democrat Party is going to cover for this guy. MSNBC is going to cover for him. CNN is going to cover for him. All these outlets are freaking covering for this guy that clearly is going through a massive issue. But, you know, we're not supposed to acknowledge it, because if we do, it's ageism. If we do with somebody else, it's racism. If we do with another country, it's xenophobia or whatever. This charades is so freaking high schoolish, it's ridiculous. But I love it at the same time, folks, because it's politics. This is the clown show we get. It's like freaking reality TV. You can't make it up. You can't write it. You just got to witness it in real time and comment on it. So, hey, at one end, I'm complaining. At the other end, I'm loving the content, and I'm loving that we can come together here on the Bald Brad Show, write hilarious comments down below. You guys got some stuff out there that, honestly, I don't even think of, but it literally has me cracking up on the couch, or if I'm in here working, reading them. You guys are freaking fabulous, and just the stuff that you have to say. So, moving on to our next story here. We have Disney Plus announcing and throwing out there their debut teaser trailer of National Treasure: Edge of History. I'm a big National Treasure fan. My dad was a gold prospector. He did gold dredging. We always watched treasure hunting shows. I still watch treasure hunting shows. I love Curse of Oak Island on the History Channel. So I'm a big fan of this type of stuff. And I was excited. I was past tense, excited when they announced this National Treasure series and that it was coming back. Except there's one big problem, folks. One big problem. Before we jump into it all, let's go ahead and just show the quick teaser trailer here on the Bald Brad Show from Walt Disney Company. So there wasn't really much there. It just showed basically the lead actress of the show itself. But we have a little bit of some information that came out, I believe, around Comic-Con just the other day. So San Diego Comic-Con has returned to an in-person event for the first time in 3 years, and one of the panels that made a big splash on the first day of geek festivities involved the new National Treasure Disney Plus spinoff. Nobody wanted a spinoff, by the way. Nobody was asking for a different cast. Everybody was asking for Nick Cage. Everybody was asking for the original cast itself to come back. And that's the problem that I think a lot of these studios don't understand. The cast is just as important as the story. And the second you switch things, it's not ultimately going to be successful. The reason why I'm not excited is because this next paragraph right here. The upcoming action-adventure series centers on a new character named Jess Morales, a 22-year-old dreamer who winds up recruiting a group of friends for a Pan-American treasure hunt that involves her family's past. So it just can't be a person. They have to throw in this woke agenda in our faces and cram it down our throat. We knew it was going to be somebody either from the LGBTQ plus community or some sort of diversity is going to be thrown in there because that's the quota the executives want. If you recall, the executives were caught on camera from a leaked meeting saying they want 50% of all their leads to be some sort of woke, whether it's gay, trans, pansexual, a dreamer now, whatever it may be. They got to make sure they cover all their bases on pushing this diversity agenda. So would have been a great show. I don't know about now. Look, I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to try and watch it because I love National Treasure. I'm hoping they don't ruin this. But look, Disney is on just a campaign to just destroy every IP that they have. So it said you had this person join at the series Comic-Con, the lead actress. Her name is Lizette Oliveira, by fellow cast members Jake Austin Walker, Jordan Rodriguez, and Zuri Reed, Antonio Cipriano, and Lyndon Smith, as well as showrunners and executive producers. During the panel, the show debuted its first brief teaser trailer, which sees Jess making her dramatic entrance into the franchise. Didn't show anything, as you saw. As of now, however, there are no plans for John Voight, Diane Kruger, who is that Abigail Chase character, and Nicolas Cage, Benjamin Franklin Gates, to make their return in the series, the latter of which has left some fans disappointed on social media. For their part, they would love to have Nick Cage back if the schedule allows. We all want Nick Cage back. Look, it's just, I just don't get why they have to do this. Why do they have to ruin everything? Honestly, look, I would have been fine if you would have just had a normal cast and you didn't push the dreamer thing. I would have been like, okay, at least we'll give it a shot. But now that I know it's like, oh, we had to make it a point in there to make it so that the person's a dreamer, and everybody has, an equal representation of showing face and stuff like that. It's just like, it's draining. It's honest to God draining, and it pulls you away from it. It pulls you away from supporting it. And it's constant with Disney. This is honest to God the reason why I don't even look at my screeners anymore from the Screen Actors Guild. If those that didn't know, I'm an actor. I'm in part of the Screen Actors Guild. I do vote for the awards. It's usually a precursor to what you'll see at the Academy Awards. But it's just like, it's constant throwing down your throat, this whole LGBTQ plus woke stuff all the time. I just want to watch a damn movie. That's why freaking Maverick did so well. That's why Tom Cruise made over $1 billion at the box office, because you have this hunger and this thirst for just good television that doesn't have to throw it in our face. You had a diversity cast in Maverick. Nobody acknowledged that a woman was flying a jet. Nobody looked like, oh my God, a black guy could fly an F-22? A black guy can fly a Hornet? Oh my God, let's acknowledge it. Let's talk about it for 15 minutes on film. Oh my God, a woman can fly a jet? Yes. Yes. They can all do these things. We don't have to freaking acknowledge it. We could just look at it and be like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, that's it. You don't have to sit there and push this lead actress being, well, she's a dreamer. She might have come here illegally, or her parents might have brought her illegally, or whatever it may have been. But, she's a dreamer, and dreamers this and dream. It's like, come, I'm trying not to cuss. I'm just so tired of it. Honest to God, it's tiring. I'm happy. I'm happy that, this actress is getting an opportunity here of a lifetime. It's not about the actresses. It's about the studio pushing an agenda. I want to make that clear. It's not about the actors. It's not about the actresses. It's not about any of that. I'm stoked for them. They got a freaking opportunity of a lifetime. I would kill to be in a TV show like that. The amount of money you're getting, the amount of publicity, and you're living the dream. So it's nothing about the actors or actresses. I'm not targeting them. I'm targeting Disney because I'm so tired of them pushing this whole agenda. So with that being said, speaking of Hollywood, our last story of the day, and a little bit of good news. There's a little bit of bad news here in terms of this woke agenda. But the good news is Brendan Fraser is back in the Hollywood spotlight. And I'm a huge Brendan Fraser fan. I've been watching him. I mean, it's been decades, at least since I've been alive. What was the movie Encino Man, where he was basically that caveman type guy coming out of the mud? Was it out of Pauly Shore's backyard or something like that? He dug him up. I forget where it was, but I've been watching Brendan Fraser. Huge fan. I am a huge fan of the Mummy series. Tom Cruise ruined it, and I'm a Tom Cruise fan. If you watched the episode the other day, I'm part of the TC club. I got my debut into acting because I looked like Tom Cruise at such a young age. But look, folks, Brendan Fraser's the man. The guy was ousted out of Hollywood. There's a whole story with him being blacklisted. I couldn't be happier that he got this lead role. It's been like, I think the last lead role he got was literally, I think 20 years ago, if I can remember correctly. And he's finally having this role, and he supposedly killed it. I mean, the makeup that we're going to show here and everything that he's doing, a lot of people are talking Oscar nods right now. So it says here, Brendan Fraser is coming back to Hollywood in a big way. Literally, the 53-year-old actor, man, he is getting old, huh, folks? The 53-year-old actor will star in the new Darren Aronofsky drama, The Whale, which premieres at the 2022 Venice Film Festival early in September. Independent film producer A24 just released a first look at the new movie about a 600-pound man struggling to reconnect with his 17-year-old daughter, who I believe is the girl from the red-haired girl from Stranger Things. Fraser will play Charlie, who abandoned his family for a man and then turned to food for comfort when his lover died, which led to his excessive weight gain. So this is where I'm talking about. There's good news that he's playing a great character, you know, and all these things. But there's also this news of just another film pushing, you know, this whole gay agenda, LGBTQ plus agenda. It's constant. Like, there wasn't any point where they slowly kind of introduced this stuff to you. It's just like a wave, a tsunami wave of just LGBTQ plus elemental P agenda community just being thrown at you. So with that being said, stoked for Brendan Fraser. The story is what it is. It's based on a play by the same name written by Samuel D. Hunter is his name. Never heard of the guy, but is what it is. Besides Fraser, the cast will include Stranger Things actress Sadie Sink and a few other people. Quote, "It's going to be like something you haven't seen before," Fraser told a outlet last year about the role. "That's really all I can tell you. The wardrobe and costume was extensive, seamless, cumbersome. This is certainly far removed from anything I've ever done, but not to be coy, I do know it's going to make a lasting impression." So here's some looks at what he looked like. Clearly he didn't obviously gain 600 pounds. He was already hefty before. He doesn't look as he did before. And look, if he's going to return to the Mummy series, and I think this is a good route for him and a good road for him to do the Mummy series and bring it back to life, because Tom Cruise did such a terrible job with it, that, you know, this is the role. And I couldn't be more than happy, because there's a lot of people that want him to come back to the Mummy series. He himself wants to do it. He's been asked on panels for years, do you want to do another one? He said, absolutely. And we all want him to do another one. So maybe this will open up the door to reboot again the Mummy series, but also help Universal with the whole dark universe idea that they were trying to do initially and get it kickstarted with Tom Cruise, the Mummy, that obviously didn't work out. Though Fraser has been acting in more minor roles over the past few years, The Whale is significant as it's the actor's first leading part since the 2013 direct-to-DVD action movie Breakout. This is causing fans to call The Whale a comeback for the Canadian-American actor. Later this year, he will also have parts in Martin Scorsese's Western Killers of the Flower Moon and the DC superhero flick Batgirl. I am so happy for this guy, because his story that happened to him is just, it's terrible, it's tragic, it's wrong. He deserves to be in Hollywood. He deserves to be a leading man. He has the chops for it. He has the acting skills for it. And again, I couldn't be more than happy for Brendan Fraser. I hope that he kills this role, and I hope that he gets an Oscar nod. If I see this film, I'll let you know all about it and give my review on it. But furthermore, if it is a good film, and just because Brendan Fraser's been treated so poorly in Hollywood, I have no problem with actually going back in and voting in the SAG Awards for this man so he can get a SAG Award himself, because he deserves it. He deserves a lot of nods just for his career, his acting career. And ultimately, like I keep saying, he just was completely ruined by the Hollywood elites, and he deserves to be at the highest point in his career, which I think is coming. So with that being said, as always, folks, Thank you for the love and support you always show me. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. The YouTube algorithm really does want to see that. If we're not clicking it, it's really not helping the show that much. They want to see the interaction in the comments. They want to see us vibing as a community, which I'm all for. That's why one of the main reasons I created the show was I want to create a community, a conservative community that could be honest with one another, not always just praise the Republicans, not always just praise the conservatives, but just be honest, you know, give the viewpoint out there. This is what it is. We're the people. They're the elected officials. They serve us. We don't serve them. And that's how it's supposed to be. So leave us a lovely like and subscribe if you can. Again, if you're over at Rumble, give us a plus and follow us there. Give us a comment down below as well. And if you're listening on any of the podcast airwaves, leave us a lovely 5-star review. I know it takes time out of your day, but again, it's just a small way that you can support the channel without throwing money at our face. With that being said, folks, I will see you tomorrow here on The Bald Brad Show.